right, good evening, everyone. This is Daniel from Tradecraft, and thought I'd detail a new position that I have on. So this is a rather complex trade. I developed this a few years ago, and it's my method of shorting the broader market. So it's a little bit complicated to unpack, and I thought I'd do my best to detail it and why it is I favor these types of trades on occasion. So the bigger picture is that because I have so many trades, buy and hold strategies, different vehicles that I use, different products, Tesla or Rocket Lab or, you know, MicroStrategy, and the list goes on and on and on. As long as I think that the market is generally healthy, I will, maintain status quo. And when the market sort of reaches an inflection point, or what I believe could be an inflection point, then I seriously start to think of ways of more broadly hedging my downside. So I like to make money when the market can go in either direction. And this is my way of making money when the market goes down. And sometimes I will short individual securities, any ridiculous product that's out there. I even looked at shorting MicroStrategy until I realized that purchasing a put would cost about 1/3 the value of the entire price, right? So if it was trading for 400, I think it was going to cost me $150 for 4 months of for that put option. So I decided that maybe that wasn't the best use of capital. Put on a short strangle. So I'd rather be selling premium than buying premium in that sense. So this is my way of just sort of more generally hedging all the various trades, all the various buy and hold, things like that. And so I typically will use either SPX or NDX. In this case, what you see before you is NDX, and that is the NASDAQ-100. This is an index product, and this means that it's European. That means that in terms of expiration, in terms of exercisability, when you purchase it or sell it, it is non-exercisable, which means that you can't be early exercised, which also then means that it reflects the risk-free rate of return or the general prevailing interest rate. And this is very helpful for me, and I'll explain why. So to sort of break this down, let's detail some of the components of the trade, right? So I sort of gave my broad overview as to why I'm doing this in terms of key market inflection points. So the NASDAQ is pretty sluggish. The QQQs can't really get off the ground, and that makes me a bit nervous. Apple can't really, Apple isn't doing too much. Microsoft isn't doing too much. There just seems to be a malaise or a weakness. That doesn't portend doom, but it just means that if there is a sell-off, and maybe this is sort of the initial staging grounds for a broader decline, then instead of just not losing money, because everything that, every trade that I have is always insured or is a call option, so I always risk define myself. I'd rather make some money, right? That's the whole point. I want to make money in either direction, but you have to be very careful when you're shorting. And why is that? Well, if you just raw dog a short, say you just said, I'll short 1,000 shares or 5,000 shares of the QQQs, right? No protection. And you're wrong. And then all of a sudden the market's up 5%, 6%, 10%. When are you going to hit the buy to cover, right? And this is what you see the short covering rallies all the time. It's because traders do not protect themselves, right? And so they panic, and they panic buy. That's what you get the squeeze. These are novice or rookie traders. I see it all the time. You probably have seen it yourself. This is amateur hour. These are the individuals that get squeezed by more experienced players, and anyone can be squeezed out of any product at any time unless you emotionally protect yourself. So you have to have protection. So experimenting with a number of different products. The reason I settled on index products is that I need a hedge, right? And the reason you need a hedge is that you can't just short naked. Well, you can, but if you're wrong, and you can be wrong, no one's above being wrong, then you're going to be under pressure. And if the market puts pressure on you, you are going to close out. And what can happen is you close out early, and all of a sudden next week, the market sells off, and you would have made a lot of money. In fact, you fucked the whole thing up, and you turned what could have been a fantastic winner into, a loser, just because you couldn't handle the initial pain. So let's break this down. So we've established a few things. Yes, you can short the market. I absolutely have to have a hedge on. Even if I was like 95% certain that the market was going to sell off, I'd still have a hedge, just because it can be very devastating to a portfolio to have that naked short. So the hedge is absolutely essential. But hedges cost a lot of money, especially if you're trying to protect your broader portfolio. Very, very expensive. And this is why I have chosen index products. This is why I do what I do. If anyone has a better idea, then I'd be more than happy to hear it. I'm always willing to learn, but this is sort of my approach that I developed over the years. So what have I done? So there's two sets of NDX here, because I shorted the market a few months ago, and obviously that did not go well. However, I was protected. So without getting into the details on that, I thought I would just detail what I did today. So first and foremost, what we have here is the NDX put. So this is going to expire April 17th, 2025. And as you can see here, this is the $23,000 put. And this is purchased for $2,062. So more than 200,000, so it's 206,200. Yes, that cost me a Ferrari. Actually, I don't know what Ferraris are going for these days, but I'm assuming more than 200,000, or maybe a DeLorean. Who knows? I think I go with a DeLorean at this point, anyways. So this cost me 200,000 plus, and now imagine I just purchased this put, and the market moved against me and expired above 23,000 come April. Well, I just burned through $200,000. Gone. Poof. I would like to avoid that. So how do I protect myself? Well, I protect myself with a call. And that's what you see here. I purchased the $19,000 call. Now, the call will cost you money. And if you're observing this trade, you'll sort of understand that these two trades offset each other, right? So, market goes up, the call makes you money, correct. Market goes down, the put makes you money. That's also correct. However, take a look at the strikes. Anything below 19,000, the call will essentially stop losing money. The put will continue to make money until zero. Same thing on the put side. So anything above 23,000, the call would make me money, and that's how you can make money on this trade. And the reason I do that is to minimize extrinsic value. So let's detail it bit by bit. So I purchased the $23,000 put. And the great thing about European options is, again, they reflect the risk-free rate of return. They reflect time value of money. So I'm purchasing this option for less than its intrinsic value, which means that when it settles, if it were to settle, if I were to hold this option until end expiration, then I would, and let's say the price action hadn't moved, it closed at exactly today's price, then I would make the difference between the purchase option and the purchase option and basically the difference between those two numbers. So NDX is trading for, let's see here, 20,776 and 23 cents. So what I mean by that is, if the market were to close at 20,776 in April, then it would, this option here would settle. It would reflect the intrinsic value. And because I purchased this option for less than its intrinsic value, I would make that gap. I would make that difference, right? So, which is basically the risk-free rate of return plus a little bit of volatility. So it's basically all the extrinsic value. And that is really reflective of the prevailing interest rate. It is compensation for the risk-free rate of return. And that dollar amount was exactly, or close to, $161.77. So this option was purchased for about $161.77 less than its intrinsic value. And if the market were to be unchanged at end expiration, then that $161.77 would be earned. And that would be reflective of the risk-free rate of return, the extrinsic value, the time value, the volatility value, all those parameters of the options would be reflected in that number. And a large component of that would be the risk-free rate of return, and that's how you would make that money. That's assuming no price action, right? That's just, it closes at today's price. So I'm using the time value of money to offset the purchased extrinsic value on the $19,000 call. So the $19,000 call has an extrinsic value of $698.77. What do I mean by that? It means that when I purchased this option, right, if you were to take whatever the prevailing price was at the time that I purchased this, subtract it from the intrinsic, the strike, the intrinsic value, and then that difference between the purchase value and the intrinsic value, that's the extrinsic value, which is reflective of, again, the risk-free rate of return and volatility and time. Right? So you're purchasing debit, you're purchasing extrinsic, and that difference is $698.77. So that dollar amount needs to be mitigated throughout the duration of the trade. All right? And because I'm expressing an opinion, I'm assuming that the market could go down. It might not, but this trade is directional. It is not meant to benefit from sideways price action. Something needs to happen. The market needs to go down. So because I'm expressing a bearish opinion on this trade, well, I need not be compensated for an upward move. So that's what you see here. This is the 23,200 call. So I've given up any potential gain. So let's say, for instance, this $19,000 call were to get above 23,000, right? That means that I would be making money on the $19,000 call above 23,000. But that's not what this trade is about. I'm trying to make money on the downside. So I've sold this potential gain, or I've given up this potential upside, and I sold this for $218, and this is again to cover the extrinsic value of the purchased call, the $698.77. So at this moment in time, I have a debit of $698.77. This is offset by a credit. The credit is the $161.77 from the purchase put, which is purchased for less than its intrinsic value, and the $218 that I sold potential upside. So that then leaves me with a debit to cover of $319. The way I would do that, the way I cover this from now until April is to sell covered puts, which is to say, because I make money on downside action, I can sell, 0 date to expiration options and, try to be as safe as I possibly can be and try to cover that $319 over the course of now until April. Unless the market were to sell off significantly, then I can decide what my next move is going to be. So it's a lot of information to cover. And the reason I like to choose index options is that they reflect time value of money. If I purchase an in-the-money put on the Qs, because they are American options, they can be exercised early, which means that if I were to purchase a really deep in the money put, it's not reflecting time value of money. And I found, after sort of experimenting with the Qs and the NDX and SPX, that European options seem better suited for this type of market downside action, right? It's a little bit easier for me to cover that $319 that I need to over the course of now until April to ensure that if I'm wrong, if the market were to go up, not down, if nothing happens, or if they're sideways, or I get blown out of the water and the market's like the NDX is at 25,000 or 26,000, then I can only suffer my max loss. Right now, it would be $319 per contract. I have one contract. That's $31,900. So I've already defined my loss at $31,900. That's much better than taking a loss of the entire value of the put option that I purchased, which would be $206,200, right? Because I'm protected by the call. But the call costs money. The call has that associated extrinsic value. That's offset by selling upside and also the time value associated with the purchase put. The combination of those two reduce the extrinsic value of the call to $319. And the only way, or there's a few different ways that you can operate from here on in. I won't bore you with the details, but selling cover puts is not a bad way of making up that extra $319 unless there's a major sell-off. Now, if there's a major sell-off, well, that's where it becomes quite interesting. So I should detail that on a separate video because it's a little bit too much information at this point. It's a lot of confusing terms. There's a lot of it's kind of a unique way of shorting the market that I kind of developed on my own. I don't know of any other traders that really do this, and so that's why it's a little bit, when you hear me speak and you see the analysis, it can be very overwhelming. Simply because there's a lot of moving parts, and there's maybe perhaps not a lot of familiarity with European options and all the different components of what makes up this trade currently. So I appreciate that. If there's any questions, absolutely leave them in the comments section. I do not need to, the final point I would like to make is that I do not need to wait until the market, let's say the market were to go down. Let's say the Qs, just tumble. Let's say we have a repeat of, July, August, right? Just an absolute catastrophe. Market collapses 10, 15%. I don't necessarily need the market to be below 19,000 on the call. That would be nice. I would make more money, right? That said, if the market does go down, you could still, and let's say, for instance, the market were to go down like 1,000 points from, what's it trading at right now? It's trading for 20,776. So let's say it went down like 1,000 points. This trade would not be a big winner, but you might still be able to make money and close it out at that point. If it got as low as 19,000, definitely it would be a winner. Why? Because the put is increasing in value due to directionality and volatility, and the purchase call is losing value due to directionality, but it's gaining value due to volatility. So when that happens, if that happens, you can liquidate the call for a loss and lock in a profit on the put. And the combination of doing that can lead to a very profitable outcome. And the way you would do that is you can purchase a call, and then that offsets a deep in the money call, I should say. And I should detail, if that should happen, I should detail that on a separate video. But what I'm trying to say is that you don't have to wait till end of expiration. If the market were to go down precipitously, this actually makes the trade even more valuable, because you're benefiting from Vega, you're benefiting from directionality, and the call will retain more of its value because of Vega. So this is not just a directional bet, but it's also a bet on volatility increasing, which is a different way you can win, right? If the VIX were to increase without there being a big directional move, which I've seen happen, that can happen, that will happen, that is par for the course in the market. So that certainly, it just gives you another added way of coming out on top. So it's a lot of information. I'll let you guys take a look at the transaction, and if anyone has any questions, feel free to shoot me a message in the comment section, or on YouTube or whatever, and I can sort of detail it a little bit more clearly. If I know it's a lot of information, I've been rambling on for a bit, so that's enough of that. I'll let everyone go, and you have a great Friday and upcoming weekend. All right, take care, guys. Have a great evening. Bye-bye.